What kind of clothes does an angel wear? Ready for it? Altar tops. Now, I admit that was my first joke aided by AI. I find it kind of comforting to know how bad it was. I know I said we're going to move on to the final two verses in Revelation 15, but in my study this week, I noticed something interesting at the end of verse 6. Revelation 15:6 states, in the NIV at least, out of the temple came the 7 angels with the 7 plagues. They were dressed in clean, shining linen and wore golden sashes around their chests, which to astute readers as we are, sounds a lot like the depiction of Jesus back in Revelation chapter 1, verse 13, which says, and among the lampstands was someone like a son of man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet and with a golden sash around his chest. That reference itself is likely an allusion to the depiction of the Son of Man in Daniel 10, where Daniel reports, I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. Now, describing the angels in this way would likely be a manner of identifying the angels' mission with Jesus. Dressing in a manner after Christ was a way of suggesting their actions were authorized by Christ. And I don't think that suggestion is far-fetched. Seems pretty right on, in fact. But we might have a problem. In 2 old and very reliable manuscripts, they don't have the Greek word for linon here, but lithon, the word for stone. Now, depending on the Bible you use, you might have a footnote saying as much. Now, if you do a word study, you'd see the Greek word linon is actually rather rare in the New Testament. Later in Revelation chapters 18 and 19, John sees various individuals and groups clothed in linen, but in each of those instances, the word for linen John employs is not linon, it's bousinas. Now, why would John use the rare Greek word for linen here when he uses a much more common version later? According to the 2 aforementioned manuscripts, he doesn't. But it begs the question, why would angels be attired in stones? Which I would respond with a question of my own. Why did Elvis wear stones? And the answer is because they look great. That rhinestone jumper was awesome. Okay, of course I get a better answer than that. In Ezekiel 28, we read of Satan's angelic appearance before the fall. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you, carnelian, chrysolite, and emerald, topaz, onyx, and jasper, lapis, lazuli, turquoise, and beryl. Your settings and mountings were made of gold. On the day you were created, they were prepared. Why was Satan adorned so beautifully, covered in precious stone? Because that was the angelic attire. When the angels come before the Lord in worship, this is how they're dressed. Which makes sense, doesn't it? If the earthly temple and altar were designed in a manner reflecting the reality of their heavenly archetype, then might it also make sense that the priest offering worship in the earthly temple, donning the gold and jewel encrusted ephod, would also be reflective of its heavenly archetype and the angelic worshipers. I realize that this is all conjectural. You're probably wondering, does it really matter whether the angels were attired in linen or stone? No, probably not. And the point seems that their outward appearance conveys the worthiness of the Lord to receive our worship. I'm not suggesting that we enforce a certain dress code for church on Sunday. But I do think that Paul's prescription in Colossians 3 is helpful. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. It's not gold or linen or precious stone. But when we attire ourselves, clothe ourselves in these ways, we're not only pointing to the one worthy of our worship, the very garments themselves are an act of our worship. So get dressed and have a great week.